I thought you were saying Carter was going to win the Olympic medal. I really thought for a moment, I actually thought you were going to say, you were saying that.
Well, there's various kind of Olympics there, so I think we need to find some particular Olympics which would suit us.
A mediation Olympics, Kato.
Mediation Olympics, right? Spiritual Olympics.
Yeah.
But I hope you people have gone through that document, that Ken Cloke's points, and because this is a serious discussion from each jurisdiction.
Well,
there was a 6-page document I found in his.
Today, what we look what we're looking at is from. Let's look at social problem solving from the national perspective, and then we look at the next Saturday the global solutions and where the mediators can come in. So, yep.
So, what do you mean by national problems there? Because we come from so many different nations.
That's the thing. That's exactly where the perspective has to come, because the role of mediators up till now in your jurisdiction, are they involved in social problem solving, or have they not been involved? So you tell us, Kato, what is the situation in Japan?
Well, are you talking about generally, or no longer about Olympics? Right?
Only the role of today. It's like serious, Kato. This is serious. That Sunday discussions of ours are still open, whether we can do that. But from my side, I think this aspect we need to actually have a serious discussion, because there are a lot of things we keep talking about, solutions and everything for people as mediators, but on the larger national level, can we play a role? First of all, can we play a role? And if
we're talking about as mediators.
Yes, right? As mediators, because I'll tell you what's going to happen is, Lisa's just come in. She'll actually give us examples of where they have been involved. So that's going to be important. And otherwise, I mean, I don't. Let's see. I'm sure there is some involvement in other places, because here there have been Supreme Court has appointed mediators in certain national level issues, so that has happened. Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
You have to kickstart the discussion. The Kato was just generally, I know he hasn't really looked at the aspect of whether mediators can play a role in global, or at least today, which is social problem solving. So please kickstart this.
Whether mediators can play a role in everything.
Yes,
that's it. Simple answer. Mediators can play a role in everything. Should we close the meeting? Can be better skills than what we have.
So that's where you have to tell us that where you've actually seen it happening, because I'm telling you, every country hasn't seen that. You've still seen involvement of mediators in certain issues. And so tell us about that. Tell us what you have experienced.
I mean, so just from the community mediation aspect, so anything that goes to the court can be mediated. So all of the court issues. That's all the simple part, right? Then you get outside of the court. What about the community in terms of, let's say, a company wants to build a structure and the citizens don't like it? You can mediate that. You can have a conversation. You can facilitate that conversation. Let's say, there's an environmental spill. Guess what? Mediators can come in and help that conversation. What happened in Japan, with the nuclear power plant. That's why I think the nuclear agency in Japan has hired mediators to help with the community and bringing the community together. So that's another issue. Any national issue that becomes a problem, we have environmental problems. I can go on and on. So environmental agencies worldwide, the climate change brings about lots of conflict. So there are opportunities in anything that's related to climate change. In the US, we have gun violence. Now we're talking about gun violence and getting mediators out there to have community conversations about gun violence. I was just in one yesterday, actually, in Los Angeles. bringing the community together to talk with the police because of those issues. I was in that too. We had a big conversation between police and community. So how any conflict, but even not conflict, even when we're getting along in the workplace, we have mediators to help people communicate better on all of these skills. Go for our management
Okay, one
skills.
second. These I'll just cut you off for 1 second.
You want
Let's
me to
just
slow
let's just
down? Okay,
no,
good.
yeah,
I'll go
we
get
will slow
coffee.
you down. You're going a little too fast. We have enough time, but let's just welcome Meltem is here. We haven't really met her before. Hi, Meltem. Then Gilbert is back after a long time. Hi, Meltem.
Hi
Hey,
everyone.
Gilbert.
Thank you for inviting me, Vikram. I
it's a
have
pleasure
been
having
wanting to meet you all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will listen. Thank you. Thank you for
Okay.
inviting me.
You have to tell her Meltem is in Canada. You can introduce yourself also, because I took most of these people have been here, so we think that this is one family where we know each other, but I think we should not take that for granted. I think we need to tell everyone should introduce themselves. So Meltem, please tell us what kind of work you're doing and where you're based.
I have an entrepreneurial background. I'm originally from Turkey, born and raised in Turkey, and I went to Germany and came to Canada as an exchange student. And since '98, I have been living in Canada. I have a very multicultural family. As I said, I have a business degree, entrepreneurial background, but last couple of years, I have been dedicated my time to learn more about peace work. And I was very lucky to meet MBBI family, and I have been very actively involved with MBBI. I had the pleasure of taking Ken Cloke's mediation courses. So I learned that I did not know how to deal with conflict myself. So it's beautiful. Now the veils opened up. I have seen, I'm touching the elephant from different sides right now. So I'm a leader for membership engagement team group for MBBI. And whatever Ken started, I'm very happy that I am participating in moving that mission forward. So I'm super interested getting to know you more. Thank you, Vikram.
Yeah. Thanks, a pleasure having you here. But the main thing is that, look, one is the theoretical aspect that Ken talks about. The other is the practical part that we are discussing, and how to merge the two. And obviously, from in various countries, what their experience has been. So let's just first have Gilbert. Gilbert, are you going to be talking about yourself? Because I'm telling you, you haven't met Hamdan. Hamdan is here. We'll come to Hamdan after that. You want to, Gilbert? You want to tell us about a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm from the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. It's in the middle of Europe. And we are just celebrating the 1st May, which means the day of labor work. And Luxembourg is always seen as a very rich country where all the banks are and so on. But that's not the case for us. As the people who are living here, we have nothing to do with the banks. They are just overhigh our prices on real estate, and now Luxembourg has become the first country where the difference between rich and poor has become the most important thing. And I'm working in mediation, especially in family mediation, and we have a very big public offer, because it's for free, and you can have family mediation in Luxembourg without paying. So it's paid by the state, and in this time now, the Corona time, it was we had a lot of work, because we have so many families who have come in troubles, and yes, that's my background for the moment. Okay.
But are you still on your motorbike and traveling around Luxembourg or not?
The weather was not in April here like doing such motorbike. I look forward to do this in May and June with my friends, but in April it was cold and rainy in Europe.
What I'll do is I'll just
was not
show.
so good weather.
I'll show them your photograph, the beautiful photograph that you sent on your drive. I'll show them that. But after that, let's everyone introduce themselves, and I'll get back. Herman is also Herman. Also, I've seen here on the first time earlier. I think you came in earlier. I don't know. Herman, you want to tell us about yourself?
Yes, thank you very much for having me here. I'm from Holland, near Luxembourg, the city of Zwolle. Holland is near the sea, of course, very much rain at the moment also. Well, I am since 2015 full-time mediator. I have a background as philosopher and theologian. I've been teaching and working also in a congregation as a preacher. And since 2015, I am an entrepreneur and have several companies in the mediation world. At the moment, Holland is, of course, famous because it's a tolerant nation, but at the moment, it's the opposite. We have a lot of problems with different opinions that clash, and well, it's of course also because of the coronavirus, a lot of discussion and social upheaval. So I think it's very important to have mediation as also a communicative community thing, national and global. For me, it's a new thing to be introduced to Kenneth Cloke. That's also the reason to join, because I want to know a lot about of him. I think he's a very interesting person, and for me, he's new. So
Look,
I'm very happy to be here.
But Herman, you can meet him on the 15th. But that is all.
Yes.
That all depends on your active participation in the discussion. It all depends on that.
Well, I try to do my best.
Okay, but Mr. Lux is here. I mean, he's a very senior mediator in the UK. But Mr. Lux, you want to put on your video? You want to? Okay, I think we'll come back to him. So, Hamdan, you want to introduce yourself because you also come in first time.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So different time zones.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Vikram, for inviting. My name is Hamdan. I am from Brunei. I don't know whether you have heard about Brunei. So the Sultan of Brunei is very famous. But I originally come from India. I have moved to Brunei for almost 26 years. My primary professional background is I'm a chartered surveyor. Doing commercial management of construction projects for the last 26 years. So I also got into arbitration. I did my LLM, so I drew interest in arbitration, mainly because the construction projects have a lot of disputes and they primarily go to arbitration. But down the line, I felt that the adversarial approach is quite disturbing, and I wanted to learn more about mediation. So I'm currently I'm doing a MA mediation and conflict resolution in Mumbai through a distance learning. So that's my connectivity to mediation at the moment.
Perfect. Dimitra has written a very nice book for children to tell them about mediation, which we are discussing and how to take it across the world. Hi, Dimitra.
Hi, Vikram. Hi, Lisa. Hi, everyone. I'm Dimitra. I'm from Greece. I'm currently living in the UK. I'm a family mediator, and my passion is peer mediation, and that's why I wrote this children's book about peer mediation. Oh, Gilbert, you're waving. It's about peer mediation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Oh.
Gilbert is going to come into a discussion. We'll get him into the discussion whenever next time we'll talk about it. He's a busy man.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got something for you guys to listen to later. You and Gilbert.
Later. Yep.
No, that's nice. So I'm doing lots of things trying to promote peer mediation in Greece. I'm happy to be here with you because Ken, for us in mediation field, is a leader. The first name that you come up when you search for mediation is Ken's. So let's enjoy our meeting today.
Perfect.
And celebrate him.
Perfect. Now the thing is that look, everyone else knows everyone, but doesn't matter. I think we'll have to go into introducing each one. Lisa, please tell us about yourself, which is one opportunity you've never got. So now you've got the floor, which you don't. Please don't misuse it. Do not misuse it.
No. So I'm Lisa Singh. I'm in Ohio, in the U.S., and I'm also a member of MBBI. I've met Melton before in several meetings. Hi. I have a passion for mediation, but I'm also an intercultural communication trainer and diversity trainer. So besides that, I participated a lot in community mediation, which means everything, because community mediation centers in the US do the whole range of activities. Plus, I actually just do anything that I get an opportunity to do that helps people communicate. I tell people, I help people talk locally and globally. That's it.
That's it? Not
That's
bad.
it.
That was a very short introduction. Look, now I don't know whether how I have to go with the number of hair people on their on their head, so I'll go with Bob. It all depends on that. Oh, before that, Bob, Mr. Lux is here. I mean, for such a senior mediator, first I would. Mr. Lux, you want to introduce yourself? You're on mute. You're on mute.
You're muted.
You'll have to unmute yourself.
Gosh, that must be the favorite saying or the most common saying of the last 15 months or so. You are muted. Not normally, not one of my normal impediments, but briefly, I practice as an international commercial mediator that aligns with my former practice as a lawyer in shipping, renewable energy, international trade, those sorts of areas. So, quite a topical recent case, which I'm looking forward to mediating at least some of the consequences of. You may remember the mega container ship, which ended up blocking the Suez Canal with loads of ships stuck each side, not able to get through the canal. So it's that sort of case. I mean, that's a very topical example, the sort of issues that I may get involved with. Vikram, is that enough?
No, actually, I should be the one introducing you, but I said I would. That'll take half the show, so it's better that you'll keep a little briefer that way. So we'll just take you around with everyone. So, in terms of hair on the head, Bob, you want to tell us about yourself?
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name's Bob, and I'm dialing in today from Ireland. And as you can imagine, mediation in Northern Ireland has a checkered history. So Vikram and I were chatting earlier, and we have a saying in Ireland that we have a problem for every solution, or the answer is no. What was the question? So we can talk about that later on. So a very brief chat about me. So I've spent most of my life in the commercial space doing a thing called project paramedic. So fixing broken projects and broken companies. And my specialism now is mediation in the project management space. Thank you very much.
Okay. Alexander, please.
Well, I'm Alexandre Simões. You can call me Alex Simões because it's easy. I'm an attorney in Brazil for 30 years, and I'm mediating commercial disputes. And I also work in the sports and management sector that's hugely affected by the pandemic. I have the pleasure to meet Jonathan Lux a few years ago in Vienna. We talked a lot about Formula One. Jonathan mentioned about Ayrton Senna, so I pay my tribute to the great British driver that we all have with Hamilton. And with that being said, I think we are in a table of friends and people who in some way want to produce to clients and to companies and to people the best way to solve problems.
Thank you, Alexander. Rosalia. Rosalia is in Canada. She's with the government there. Yes, Rosalia.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Rosalia Panarello. I'm in Montreal, Canada. Yes, I am a federal civil servant with the Canadian government, but I've been an accredited mediator, civil and commercial mediation since 2010, both nationally and provincially. I started in mediation and arbitration. First of all, in arbitration in late 90s during my master's in international trade law, and then when I did my bar, I meandered towards mediation also. So I dabbled in both. And Canada has been practicing, well, mediation has been a standard practice here since the 90s, when I got into it when it started getting popular, because I was in law school at the time, and it's something which resonates. I'm very passionate about mediation. And as for the mediation beyond borders, I've participated in a few meetings, and I'm still considering becoming a member. And
Meltem is here for that only. What is she just wants to get members? That's her job. Get members.
Well, it's about their Ken Cloke, and is he going to be on today, or is
No, it's on the 15th. You have to participate in discussions then, and then when we sit with him, that is the time. Then those things we'll take him through those discussions, and then let's see, take his view, because one is, like I said, one is a practical view, one is a theoretical view. Of course, obviously, it comes from experience, but people on the ground in every country, let us see what their views on that is. But one thing, just request for everyone, please don't keep yourself muted. Just keep yourself unmuted. If there's a sound, I'll mute you. Don't worry about that. It's a conversation. Look, now the thing is, this is the living room that we are going to be part of. So let's just take it that way. Don't keep yourself on mute.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
Kato.
Right. Okay.
Wait a minute. If this is the living room, where are the beverages?
You've got yours in your hand. But you are the only one who's got. Everyone's got the beverage. I have an empty glass.
Even I've got it. Hi everybody. I'm located in Tokyo. The back of the back screen is the place where I live. I took a photo myself, right? That was autumn, right? I've been back in Japan now for 11 years or so, right? Prior to that, I lived and worked in London for 25 years. Right? So probably UK is my home, right, or second home. I'd like to return, but you know, I can't even travel. I'm an English lawyer by profession. Right? A bit unusual because I'm a foreign lawyer in Japan, right? Even though I was born and educated and brought up in Japan. Right? In the mediation field, I therefore see Japan as a quite interesting place, right? Because when you ask people in Japan, is a mediation, what do you think about mediation? They immediately think about domestic court-annexed conciliation, right? Where the judge and the judges like the civil servant or volunteer, they come and listen to and tell you. Right? That's their mediation.
You were supposed to introduce yourself. Not the mediation in Japan. We'll take that on a later.
Oh, I was scared, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Sorry, I had a habit of talking too much, so I keep it short.
And I have a habit to get people back on track.
Right. So what else I can do?
That's it. No, that's it. That's it. We'll come back to you. I mean, the idea was just for people to know that, like you said, your background in the UK and being a solicitor there. It's interesting. I mean, people should should know that, where you're coming from. Yeah. Teresa is a psychologist in Florida. Teresa, you want to put on your video? You want to? Yeah.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely.
So I apologize for the informal nature. I didn't think I was going to be able to participate. I just hopped off my bike. So hopefully you'll forgive me here taking care of my mother's little dog. I'm a mental health professional by background, and I reside in the United States in Florida. And in Florida, we're fortunate to have a pretty strong mediation community. And I'm certified in all of the areas available in Florida, which include dependency, family, county, circuit civil, and appellate. And but I mostly work in the area of family mediation. And I also am a collaborative neutral. And so even though I've been certified actually as a mediator for over 25 years, right around 25, I guess, maybe, I really have only been active because I was doing other work in the last 6 to 8 years. And now all I do is mediation and neutral facilitation of one sort or another, mostly collaborative or mediation. So given the length of my career, I still feel like a newbie comparatively to things that I've done much longer. And so I'm continuing to enjoy learning and connecting. So I appreciate being able to participate.
Okay. Nice of you, Teresa, to join us, and from your cycling trip to talking about mediation. But then look, Lisa is going to kick off the whole thing because she's got experience in social problem solving and the role of mediators there. Lisa, can you started off, but I think you can go back to that.
No, I was just talking about all the different fields, but maybe we should just talk about, like, besides your specialty, what other areas do you think?
No, Lisa, you're not the facilitator. I am the facilitator. So you please don't do my job. You just tell us in terms of role of mediators, what have you seen? What is the experience you've had in social problem solving? The climate part of it, we'll take it on next Saturday. So in terms of the,
You're just trying to kick me out of my role. My role has always been as a facilitator.
I know, this is what I told you that day. You take your roles so seriously that you end up not giving your view on anything. Please, today is your view on role of mediators in social problem solving. That's your role to talk about that.
I mean, in general, for me, our skills in being able to listen and being able to communicate are the skills that we need. So if there's any social problem, that's why we as mediators become at the center of that and where we have the role to play. So that's very general. I mean, specifically, like I said, I just participated in a discussion about gun violence in the US. And it's very intense because those discussions are not so simple. I was listening to parties who have been shot 8 times or shot in the head, or who have experienced gun violence on both sides, one from the police and one from people in the community. Those kinds of discussions, we as mediators, because we can listen, we can hold a space for people to be able to talk about it and create a bridge. I mean, at the end of our conversation, we saw the parties coming together and the police thinking about what they could do to help the community and realizing that, wow, they never thought of some of the things that issues the community brought to bear. So that's an example of an actual real life discussion that I hold as a mediator. In this case, I was acting as a facilitator, but those conversations, I also work with reentry people coming out of prison, having the same kinds of discussions with them. Like, what are those issues? What things are you experiencing? I think as mediators, we work well with people in trauma as well, because they bring a lot of issues to bear, and being able to hold that space and being able to listen. I can't even imagine. To me, the power of listening is probably the most poignant power that we have as mediators. Being silent for a little while and letting someone else talk and listening is huge.
Lisa, why I'm asking you to tell us about this, because Ken comes from some space that he's been part of and you've been part of, which a lot of countries are not part of. Mediators have not been involved in issues like you have been. So take us through more of these examples so that at least we have an idea of the broader picture in terms of what's happening in the US, so that we can take something from there as to how we can do it. Because I'm talking from the Indian perspective, I know we're at zero there. There were some cases you'll find of where they've been involved, but nothing much happening there.
Well, I mean, I've had the privilege of starting out in a community mediation center as a volunteer, also as a contractor, and working with them. Actually, I wrote their grants, so a lot of the programs they did, I got to, I mean, my rule of thumb is if I wanted something started, I found grant money and I got it started. So I kind of had some influence a little bit. But that is where you see things starting, because in a community, especially one that's the community mediation center I was a part of, was funded by the city. So any issue in the city, including city planning, we facilitated the planning of what the community wanted to look like in 2020, their vision. We went around the whole city having those discussions. We communicated any issue that came up within the city because we were a part of it. So gun violence is an issue in the city. Or where I think I mentioned earlier, where a business, businesses, if they start to have problems with the community, they will mediate between the community and the business. So a lot of times people will call up complaining about who's hanging out in the business, or maybe the business was polluting the city. Those kinds of issues come forward. We've had nuclear spills happen in the city that we've to the neighbors. I can go on and on and on the long list. Then, of course, we do a lot of court mediation, juvenile mediations,
I can't hear. Look.
Mediations between victims that were severely, felons in prison, and people that wanted a connection, wanted to get a reason why this crime had been committed. Those kinds of things have been done. I've had experience in that. And then, I don't know, I'm running out of steam for my list, but I have a huge list.
I've seen that problem always with you. Whenever you've given the whole floor to yourself, you have a problem with you. When you're not given the floor, then you want to come in. Okay, please, anyone, please, you just have to raise your.
I don't like to talk too much. I like to share.
Just come in. I think I have Mr. Lux coming in. Mr. Lux, you want to touch on this? You can keep yourself unmuted. You can keep yourself.
Actually, Vikram, I wanted to apologize. Bad planning on my side. I'm supposed to be at another engagement. So will you forgive me if I bow out now? And I look forward to seeing you all soon. Apologies for that. But I'm, as I say, bad planning on my side. Mea maxima culpa. Until soon, I hope. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you for coming in. But please do not keep yourself muted. Just come into the conversation at any point of time. And if you want to say something, if you feel you rude in cutting in, just raise your hand up. I'll get you in.
I think we need to separate mediation from restorative justice. And I think Lisa is doing lots of different things. I mean, you're doing mediation, community mediation, but restorative justice as well, as I can understand now.
Yeah, she does that. Yeah.
I think because restorative justice in this country, it started with mediation, and to me, restorative justice and mediation are the same thing. And that's what I learned as a restorative justice professional. Mediation is a part of restorative justice.
I think restorative justice may be an umbrella. But mediation for me, as I see it, we have two people equal. In restorative justice, we say that you blamed, you did something wrong, and you need to restore that. So I think it's different.
Yeah. No, but Dimitra, what we'll do is this aspect of restorative justice and mediation and how they are interlinked, that we'll get on later. Right now is actually the fact of how mediation can, we have to really look at how it can be used.
None of the things I mentioned, though, were considered restorative justice. They're considered functions of the mediation center.
Okay, I tell you what, Lisa, I think maybe I put you in
a functions of the mediation center, not restorative justice in terms of victim offender. That was a part of it. But all of the things I mentioned were under the umbrella of what a Community Mediation Center does as an example of the breadth of what mediators can be involved in.
Perfect. Rosalie
So
wanted to
that
say
was
something.
where I'm
Rosalie, keep
from.
yourself unmuted. Now you say, come in. You can unmute yourself, and then yeah.
I just wanted to add for restorative justice. Well, first of all, I do believe that mediation is part of restorative justice. Mediation creates the dialogue that you need to go towards restorative justice, because you need the apology in restorative justice in order for the parties, basically
Yes,
to,
totally.
so I don't think that they're separate. In my view, I think they're just part, that it is a sort of an umbrella, but I think the process itself, it's included in there. Mediation, dialogue, facilitation.
Yeah, the process is the same exactly, but the cause is totally different. I mean,
yes and no, because
but now you have to tell. No, look, the process doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, the role of mediators. You have to tell me the role of mediators in social problem solving. That is the topic we have to discuss.
Exactly. You can have apology, because I've had mediations where you've had the apology there, okay, and it's transformed the relationships in the end. I've had cases. I've actually been involved in cases where it started off as a dialogue, it went towards mediation, and moved into with an apology, restorative justice. So I see it as linear. That's the way I see it. And every case, it's you can't categorize. It's a case by case. That's the way. Okay. That's my
Meltem wants to come in. Yeah, Meltem wants to come in. Yeah, Meltem.
I actually, as a newbie, probably in all of you, I am the newer person when it comes to mediation. So I'm still in the learning process. So I would like to ask you all questions, because I have taken this beautiful course from Ken Cloke, The Art of Asking Questions. Would you please define what do you see as a social problem, and then we can see what your role is, or what our role is.
That is why I started Lisa off on this, because she's not just a theoretical aspect of, she's practically done it. I mean, so come on, Lisa, again, you just tell her what is the social problem that they can,
Social problem would be, I think, any problem. So whether it's between one or two people or a whole community, but anything that affects the fabric of our social interactions or social being. So we're walking around, we're in homeostasis, and everything is going fine, and then something goes wrong. So like I had mentioned, maybe gun violence in the community, or maybe worldwide, maybe there's something breaking out. Then how do we find a way back to our interactions again? And for me, everything is about social interactions, how we are interacting and communicating socially. Doesn't mean we always have to get along, but what are we in terms of having that quality of interaction so that it's not disrupting our lives?
So I think basically, Meltem, what we're really talking about is that think of a number of people getting affected by something. So look at starting from the small community, a larger.
I understand totally, but I was wondering specifically if everyone is focusing on a particular social problem, and then I can perhaps put in more perspective where you are coming from when it comes to defining what is your role in that. Because, some of us are working in specific different social problems, and we are all from different parts of the world. So it will be interesting to know what, for example, Dimitra is focusing when it comes to a social problem that she would like to solve versus Herman's interest.
Absolutely.
Like
so
that could give me a perspective.
We can go both ways. One, we can go is individual looking at what they are looking at. Instead, we can also go outwards. We can start with in the community level. What are the social problems that can be solved, or the mediators can assist in solving as we move into from communities, we move into towns, cities, states, nations. We just keep it now limited today to the nation. and then next Saturday we move out of it and between nations and that. So we'll do that. So I would, because actually why we're just going larger, because what starts off in a community and the role there, as it moves on, the kind of role they can play will be better understood, I think. So that's one way of going about it. And that other way is, like you said, everyone talks about their area and that how they're looking at it, but then it'll become a little scattered maybe. But let's try both ways. Let
So
us look at.
for Meltem and I also want to say that one role of this social that brings us out from mediators is knowing how to ask questions.
Perfect. I think we can do the mediation and mediators and how they go about their process at a later stage, because they'll always go into that, because there'll be specifics that people would want to look at how they go about mediation. So I think interesting view can come from, say, let's Alexander will talk about the Brazilian experience and how mediators, their role.
Well, I would like to make a parallel to make things easier to everyone. What's happening in Brazil is very similar in some ways to what happened in the United States. We have a president here that's a tough guy. He's what he is. So he's a former military. He's very aligned with Donald Trump. So sometimes he denies what's happening in Brazil. And although the elections for the next elections will be only 2 years from now, we are in a very similar environment where we have two extremists dividing the country. So we have people who say we must be isolated and let the economy be taken care in another time, let's save lives. And the other position, where is our president is standing, is no, this is a small fever, the economy must run, we cannot close the country. And I think this is the perfect storm for mediators, because we want to produce results in the middle. So we have the possibility to say, maybe two things can be coexistent. When we say stay at home, in Brazil, unfortunately, many people cannot stay at home because they need to live. They need to have a supper. They must work in the breakfast. To have the lunch, they must work in the afternoon. So we have to look to our society and say, we have different tribes or different persons, different groups that can do or can't collaborate with what is needed. So if you can stay at home, stay at home. If you need to work, let's do the perfect conditions for you to work. Instead of everybody goes, because in Western cities, everybody goes to work at the same time. So in São Paulo, it's a huge place. We have problems in the subway. We have problems with the buses because everybody goes to the same time to work. I said, we must rearrange that. The movements we are making for social transformation is talking with the politics and say, look, let's escalate, let's divide. Some people will wake up at 5, others at 6, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. So we are dividing the people who needs to go to work, because everybody has a consensus when we say, can we stop hospitals? Because doctors are very tired, nurses, and everybody who is in the front line of the pandemic. No, they need to work. Okay, they need to work. Let's give them conditions to work. Everyone else who wants to go to the streets because we need to provide something, because then I think we can organize. So more than never before, I'm seeing that persons who are not thinking in exclude groups, but say, we have common grounds. William Ury talks a lot about the third side. I think the kind of movement we need to make. Two human beings will have points that they disagree, but for being human and to divide in humanity, we are also find some grounds of common sense. And I think we need to develop a lot what's a common sense to say, I'm okay, I respect your opinion, I'm not wanting you to convert to my thoughts. But as we need to live together, let's find a way to do so, to produce that. So I think in Brazil, we are joining forces to find what is in the middle and trying to say the people from the middle to say to the extremes, hey, let's come together, let's embrace each other because we have a common goal to do. We have a country to run. Yeah, and we have some good things in Brazil too, and we have our bad things. We don't want to put our dirty below the carpet, but we want to solve the problem. So I think it's tough times, but maybe the best times I ever seen to have mediators and peacemakers all around talking and organizing society.
So basically, you're saying that, first of all, those creative solutions which are required, they can look at it from that perspective. Yeah. Yes, Rosalia.
I'm seeing Rosalia with the hands on. Please,
You don't
Rosalia.
need to put a hands up. You can come in at any point of time.
Okay.
I know. Look, let me tell you also, I have this button where it says mute. At any point of time, I can put you on mute. So don't worry. I can do that. I'll do the opposite.
Okay.
I'll put you on mute when I want to put it. Otherwise, you keep yourself unmuted.
Okay. I thank you, Vikram. Alexandra, I just wanted to ask, do you, I mean, maybe I'm going far-fetched here, but are there any consultations with the public that are taking place in Brazil, or that, or if they're not, would you consider, let's say, mediators taking the lead to do consultations, like, work in conjunction with the government? Because that's what we do here we have strategies. Let's say we have a social problem. Let's say homelessness, for instance. I can give you an example. So what we do is we do consultations with organizations that are involved, let's say, with the homelessness community, and we try to get the pulse, what's going on the ground, and then that goes up, and it becomes policy. Is there any kind of that type of organization
we are trying to reconfigure that, Rosalia. We had a great channel with the former Ministry of Justice that was a judge that was in the top head of the Operation Car Wash, the big investigation about bribery in Brazil. And this judge became the Ministry of Justice, but he fought against the president, and when the president doesn't agree with anyone, he simply fired. We had a lot of programs going on. We had a program for education, because in Brazil, we don't have digital inclusion. So when you say, let's do the classrooms online, imagine a shanty town. Persons don't have equipment, a notebook, a computer, or even a cell phone. If they have the cell phone, they don't have how to pay the credits, because you need to stay online during the class. So we developed with the help of some organizations a program to involve radio and TV, because in Brazil, you find radio and TV everywhere. And say, let's do the classes online, but then we broadcast the same classes on TV and radio. So people will have the possibility to stay at home and have some kind of education. But when we imagined that, we thought, okay, we'll do that for some months, maybe a semester or two. Now we are seeing that maybe we are going to need to do that a lot of time. In Brazil, we advanced in few states, but I was with a colleague of Chile. They took all the great ideas we had, sent them to the Chilean government, and Chile did that also. So we are parting from a point of view. Nobody has the same position, nobody has the same economic means. So we need to find and focus in different approaches to solve the problem. What is good for a group is not necessarily the same that we work with another group. We are trying to rebuild. Today, our president went, recently, our president went to the meeting with the leaders I guess in Switzerland, and talked that he's taking care of the Amazon jungle. So what we are seeing in the world, I think in your jurisdictions, maybe the same happens, is that sometimes what the politicians talk is not the same what they do, they act. So it's complicated when someone address something, because it's easy to talk, but to give the example is much harder. And in Brazil, we are tired of talking. We want to see the example. So less talking, more action is the pace here. But we need to reorganize. And as the president's going to run again, he will need to make another base of support. And then we say, I'm okay with you. I knew that your presidents would be that. It's the same that maybe I will ask the Americans who are with us here. when Donald Trump was elected, what the world expected? That Donald Trump would be different in the president than what he was his whole life. So when a radical, a left or right radical, assumes the power, you need to say, okay, this in a democratic society, you know what this person will do, because if she's aligned with some ideas. So for me, it's new. I wrote the article of Ken, and Ken put something that I couldn't imagine, because I saw only the beginning of the problem of the Congress, and he gave us to our imagination. Imagine what could have happened if, from that point, the election was canceled and the martial arts law was in place, and Donald Trump said that the election was a fraud, and he was going to fight it with his life for that.
He from that background, then he's talking about this. Because what I'm not going to get into is the politics of a country and whatever reason that they elected someone, or what his concept of life might be, because that's just the background. I mean, it's just something where
but only to see Brazilian democracy is from 87 from now, so it's 40 years only of democratic practice as a not interrupted term. And our president is a former captain of the army, but the army is not saying we are going to the streets, we are going to take the power. They take reservations. Even with the vice president of Brazil being a general, the vice president is sometimes against the president. What's good? Because I say he has some brake systems to hold him down a little bit, because he's a man who makes decisions and do not regret from the decisions making. And I say, I focus on the decision I make. There is an old saying that say, if you choose a path, don't look back, go into your path. But when I realize that I'm wrong, I have no problem in turning back and find another way. But in Brazil, in South America as a whole, we see the leaders, the political leaders, as natural leaders. So it's too much on a person. And for me, I'm not interested only in the person. I'm interested in the team of persons that are around the president, around the power, because with this team, most of them are invisible. I guess Rosalia knows that. Sometimes it's not the president, but someone who is close to him will make him understand the message. So those people sometimes are not in the power. And what I learned from here is that it's much better not to be as the front person, because the front person will be in the news. The other ones are always on backstage. And we mediators are trying to work on backstage in Brazil.
I see. I understand.
Okay, Abe's just come in, Abe. Don't mute again. I'm telling you again, these people have heard this 5 times again. Don't keep yourself on mute, because let the conversation flow. You can come in whenever you want. Abe, you please introduce yourself to everyone. I don't know whether they've seen your show.
Yeah.
That show that
some of them may have seen me. Sorry, I'm a bit late. I've just arrived from 4-hour flight. I'm from Australia, mediator, lecturer at the university, and
now Cambodia. Now Cambodia has become a major.
I am a member of the board of the Cambodian Mediation Center. Yeah.
Okay, so basically, you know what the discussion today is. The discussion is on the role of mediators in social problem solving. So right now, what Alexander took us through, what his Brazilian experience and what he feels in some part of what kind of role they can play. We'll elaborate on that. So if you want to, what is your view on that? You can.
Look, I think 2 days ago, I have received an email from an ex-student of mine. He is a senior army officer in the Philippines. And he wrote to me and he said that in 2019, after the course, he mediated the agreement between the Philippine army and government and the Mindanao rebels. And he said that he used the mediation course, that skills that he learned from my course in his negotiation. and he achieved a really good outcome at the end of it. He said, it's fantastic. And this shows mediation is not just about solving problems, it's about really connecting people and being able to use the skills. It's not just a skill in one area, it's in every area of our lives. And it is a social, and it is an agent of change.
And you'll have to elaborate on it as we go along. You'll have to give us more examples where you think it can fit in. Maybe that's you'll have a very important contribution on that. But anyone else wants to comment at any point of time, you can either put your virtual hand up or your physical hand up, whatever you want, because Meltem still has something to say. She's holding back. Meltem, please, you can come in right now. There is something you want to tell us.
I keep thinking, I guess I'll echo Ken's, one of Ken's teachings, the omnipartiality. I see the role of a mediator, or I hope to be one, holding a omnipartial space that I will be able to, through asking questions, as Lisa said it so well, really understand and listen to every stakeholder, and through dialogue, create the healing, create the environment that people will hear each other out. And I think that omnipartiality is a very important role for a mediator, to be able to really give every stakeholder, every party the feeling that you're at their side, you understand them.
Well, what we'll also do is, after we've gone through the play, we'll also discuss whether neutrality is an issue or is not an issue while looking at the role of mediators in social problems. Or we'll come to that later. But now from the Irish experience, Bob, anything that you want to?
I think I would echo what Alex said earlier, and Rosalia. I think if we take the politics out of it, one of the most disturbing things that we've seen recently is there are bad actors. There are, across the world, there are bad actors who have very little incentive because of where they have found themselves through disinformation or through vested interest. There are bad actors at play. And that's a very difficult and a very different situation to deal with, because you've got to understand who's behind them and what their lobby base is, etc. So to bring it back to your original question, Vikram, about the social challenges within our national society. So here in Ireland, we have a very long, drawn-out challenge, and it's really about a territorial dispute. So the island of Ireland is annexed. There are 6 counties in the northeast where I currently live, and the United Ireland nationalist community would like to see those returned to a united Ireland. But at the same time, in the northeast of the country, the predominant, known as loyalist or unionist community, would see themselves as British. So we have a very intractable, and many of you will be aware of the 30 years of violence, which ceased almost entirely, not totally, some 25 years ago with the Good Friday Agreement. So there are 2 challenges for mediators in this part of the world. And the first one is, when you're dealing with political leaders, those political leaders are to quite a great extent victims of their own position. So their legitimacy comes from their ability to reinforce and fight for their representatives. So that leads to polarization. And many of the politicians are very limited in what they can do, because they have constituencies that they must constantly refer to. So that, from a mediator's point of view, becomes very, very challenging. So there's that one aspect. And I think the second aspect is the underlying interest is where the answer lies. Because the underlying interest of most people in what is in this part of the world, we're very fortunate. We don't have to hunt for water or basic needs. We have first world problems, as some people would refer to them. But our underlying interests are about educating our children, about having social justice, about having decent employment and accommodation and healthcare. The same the world over, but if you take those 5 areas where you would say, what are my underlying interests? And everyone has the same underlying interest. We just, because of that polarization, have a very different way of how we think we will go about that. So the mediators and the role of mediators over the years, certainly over the last 30 to 40 years, have been understanding those underlying interests and trying to disconnect those or unhitch them from those 2 polarized positions. And that's quite challenging, because as I said earlier, we joke in Northern Ireland about we have a problem for every solution. And that sometimes, and I feel we're almost afraid of reaching a solution, because we have another, and this is a very Irish saying, it's called whataboutery. And every time you come to a solution, or they always say, what about? So we call it whataboutery. So what about? And we have another thing called them-uns. And them-uns in Northern Ireland would be, what about them ones? And in the local vernacular, that translates to them-uns. So you could find yourself as a mediator coming up with what you believe to be a very, very rational and reasonable solutions, and you'd be faced with those 2 questions: whataboutery. So we also have another saying. So we can't tell you we can't remember what happened last week, but we can tell you what happened 300 years ago. So we are a hostage to our history, and of course mediation is about a future unencumbered by the past. But when you have such a long, drawn-out past, that making that disconnect without making the participants feel vulnerable is very challenging.
That's interesting. Yeah, because this will be a situation in a lot of places. This will be a
We're not
there's so much history behind everything that to bring it in. But another thing we'll discuss later is the fact that whom are you going to be talking to when you talk about the role of mediators? You talk about the government on one end, you talk about a group on the other end, whether that group represents an issue or not, doesn't represent it. Are they just there because they've been able to put themselves in that position? We'll come to that also. But
we have 2 challenges there, and that is that we quite often, and in the early days of the Good Friday Agreement and what led up to that and the ending and the ceasefires and the violence, we had talks about talks about talks about talks. So there were quite a few things you had to jump through, and they could be derailed very, very easily. And that's quite challenging. And the other thing is that when you find communities where they feel as though they have peace, they feel that the peace has been done to them, not with them. So peace and reconciliation has been done to them by people who don't understand them, and that you need to be very wary of that.
Yeah, Lisa.
Yes, I think Bob brought up a lot of very good points, because we know that mediation itself is limited to the parties themselves, whether they want to resolve something. And then the resolution also has greater implications, as Bob was saying, the whataboutery and the them-uns. And I love that. I want to write it down, because I think that's something we should use, even as mediators, that these are considerations. But I mean, I know years ago I was called up by someone in the Obama administration, and they wanted my advice on how to get Congress to get together. And I laughed at them because I told them, I have no solution. Good luck.
You can't do that, Lisa. You can't do that. How can you do that? You have a solution for every problem. They have a problem for every solution.
I don't have a solution when it's a political gain not to get along. And it's not about each individual or the groups. Maybe they want to, but it's about trying to gain, which is what Bob is talking about. That's where our limitations are. Even in this discussion of the social, our greater role, we also have limitations in terms of, where, and we can talk about that more when we talk about politics, but where, people can start to come together. And I think, even as mediators, it's good for us to think about our own limitations as well as our abilities, and to acknowledge those, and to be self-reflective and reflective as a whole, as mediators in general, because our role might be where we can open up the abilities of others to come together and to address the whatabouts and the themums, and maybe we should keep those in mind.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, Gilbert. Yes, Gilbert.
I agree with that, because
Yeah.
I feel that one of the recognizing our limitations, that's part of the strategy, knowing when you can go further, or you need to step back and just to stop. Even if you just initiated a discussion, but you know that it can't go further because the parties are not ready, or the elements are just not there. There's other factors which have come into play. There's political factors, there's other spoilers, there's political interests. I think a mediator has to be able to diagnose. That's part of the diagnosis process that the mediator has to go through. And you have to be honest with yourself and not see it as a failure, but just, you see it as part of your strategy, and it's okay. Maybe it's not the time. The time is not ripe yet.
Rosalia, that's such an important thing for the context that I just mentioned, where most of the people who you would read in history who got the commendations for the Good Friday Agreement, they actually came in at the 11th hour. Most of the people who did all the heavy lifting and took huge political and personal risks have kind of been forgotten. Now, most of the good actors in that don't care, because they knew that they were building the road, and there was a continuum, and timing, like in comedy, is everything. Yeah, you could be the best facilitator, mediator in the world, but if the timing's wrong or there's a bad actor, you're not going to achieve anything. And exactly. I think it's understanding where you are in that continuum. And like Mo Molam, the late Mo Molam, she didn't care about getting medals or badges or commendations. She just wanted to bang heads together. And she was actually very good at it. But when it came time to do what we used to call shaking hands and kissing babies, which is what politicians are good at, she was not the person for that time. And I think it's that humility as a mediator, is knowing, play to your strength, know when your time is there, but know when your time is done. And I don't want to extend it, but one of the big tensions we have in commercial mediation in the UK now is, are you facilitative or evaluative? Because people want more evaluation, and that's right. For the purists, that can be quite hard, and in social circumstances, that can be very difficult.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Gilbert wants to come in for quite some time. Herman, after that, just Gilbert, he's been wanting to come in.
And Melum also had her hand up.
Yeah. Oh, I'm doing the facilitation. I am there. Hello, my name is Vikram, and I am the facilitator, and I'm the mediator. I'm the only one who has mediator in front of his name. No one else gets that opportunity.
Doorkeeper role. You need to learn what the doorkeeper role is.
You have your coffee, okay?
That's not facilitation.
Okay, Gilbert wants to say something. Gilbert wants to say something. Yeah, Gilbert.
I wanted to reframe a little bit, because I think we are quite near of what Ken Cloke is defining when he talks about the development of democracy and where mediation comes in. Because he says in his definition that democracy requires a higher order of skills, like communicating, listening, solving problems, all this stuff. And I think we as mediators should not be so shy in involving us in politics, because we are transposing all these skills. And when I think on my job in peer mediation, when I'm trying to educate in mediation, I'm also doing something for democracy, because we are learning all these higher skills. And this is something we should not be, as mediators, so reserved on it. We should involve in all this. That's what I wanted to point out.
Yeah, I think that, no, I think you said it's a very important, I mean, the peer mediation by itself is an important area to then those people to further take those skills into, be it politics or whatever it might be, to take those skills with them, definitely. Herman. One second, Rosalia, one second. Herman wanted to say something. Yeah, Herman.
Yes, thank you.
Rosalia, one second. Raise one second, Rosalia. Herman wants to say something.
Just very quickly respond to Gilbert. I'm sorry, Herman. Just very quickly, when you were saying, you know, we have to get more involved, that sometimes we can't. Our hands are tied. I can say that as a mediator, sometimes that I have to intervene as a civil servant also, but as a mediator, and my hands are tied. They're really tied. I can only go so far, and I can't politicize because of the guide, you know, like I'm really, my hands are really tied. So I have to know how far I can go. And if you want to be an advocate, you have to be independent, let's say, of the political structure itself. You really have to come in as
involving is not always taking side or politicizing something. Involving is just also giving feedbacks on how decisions are made.
Okay.
That's what I meant. We always can observe and give our comment how we see also on the political level how decisions are made. And this is for me not a taking side involvement, but it is a support to develop skills in all these decision-making processes. That's what I meant. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Herman.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I want to comment also what Gilbert is saying, the shyness of us as mediators. Here in Holland, mediation is not a very old thing. It's, I think, the end of the 90s, beginning of 2000, it became a profession. And a lot of mediators are perfect listeners, as Lisa also said, but they think it's very difficult to talk about it. And to make the gospel of mediation, as I would say, shouting into the world. The world is watching, hoping, and waiting. Kenneth Cloke is writing in his paper. I see that also. We have here in Holland at the moment a great issue with the tax authorities. A big scandal about people who have been robbed of their money, their houses because of wrong policy. And of course, mediation then is also a very important way of bringing people together and helping them to do the talking they need to do with each other. But the mediators here are very shy, exactly as Gilbert says. And it's also their strength, because they're facilitating, they are helping, they are in the background. But the profession here has a big problem with talking about the beauty of talking together and making a group, organizing themselves. It's also very difficult here. So that's a problem, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Abe, please.
Yep. Look, I believe mediator's role is okay and needed in every aspect of our life, regarding social, community, politics, or anything. 2 days ago, I was interviewed by an Australian radio about the issue between Australia and China, and they talk about war and all of that has been happening here. I was not asked or interviewed because of my expertise in China-Australia relationship. I was asked as a conflict resolution practitioner, what else could have been done or could be done to avert this sort of talk and the escalation of the dispute between Australia and China. So it is really important that we still play a role at every aspect. In Australia, we have mediation right from neighborhood disputes to the highest level of conflicts. We are here dealing with conflicts all the time, regardless what level, where it is. I mediated government conflicts many, many times. So it is really important that we get ourselves, our skills are needed and they are there in demand, and we should not shy away from any conflict because we have the skills and we can deal with the conflicts regardless where they are.
But Abe, the thing is that obviously you have that experience, but you also have to tell us about specifics, because you might assume that people know that mediators have been used in certain situations, but it's not the case. So I think you need to take us through some specifics also.
Okay, look, we have what we call community mediation. And it is a government funded, it is part of the government, actually Justice Department, where they have mediators actually mediating disputes between people in the community, the neighborhood, between family, between businesses, between anybody. And it is a free service. The reason for this service, it has to reduce the number of cases going to court, to reduce the amount of time police spend in dealing with those disputes, as well as the cost involved to the government in managing and dealing with these disputes, from police to court to everything else. So they find it much easier and cheaper and quicker to deal with those disputes by mediators funded by the government. So this is one aspect. We have mediation at every level, private. Myself, I do private mediation, and we get called. If there is a dispute within organizations, corporates, anybody, they call on us. We have another aspect, which is what we call conflict mapping. Many government organizations, for instance, they ask for mediators to go there and actually identify areas of potential conflict in the workplace or with customers or with the clients. So that's another area we are dealing with. In child protection, we have mediators working with families to mediate between the family and the department and how best to work with the children and to make sure the children are safe. And there are many different models there. The family decision-making conferences.
But Abe, we have to go little. Yeah, we have to go a little wider. One is the individuals and their the cases and the mediation in those situations. We are going a little larger, where like a community situation where more than that individual and those individuals are involved, more where society and the issues there are involved. In those cases, are there any examples that you want to give us on the community level or in the state level, national level?
Well, the most common one is the noise with neighborhoods, where especially where people were living in apartments. And as you know, the apartments walls, sometimes they're not as soundproof as everybody wishes to be. So there is noise traveling through the walls, and people do get upset. They can't sleep, they can't do their own things because of that noise. That sort of problems is referred to mediation.
Okay.
That's the sort of thing. Between neighbors is fences, having a fence, as simple as that, but can cause a lot of problems to some neighbors.
Okay, but Indrani is coming, and Indrani, you want to show us yourself, or you just want to give us your picture?
Good evening, Vikram. It's been a while. No,
yes. First of all,
yeah.
as your father, all right?
Many thanks, Vikram. He's due to have another off on the 8th of May next week. So yeah.
I have to ask you in this public space, yeah, because I have to ask you in this public space because I haven't spoken to you for quite some time. No.
Thank you, Vikram. I exactly. And on that note, given the lapse in our communication, my prayers and thoughts are with you guys in India, with what we're seeing on the media at the moment. So Godspeed.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you. So, but you'll have to introduce yourself, Indrani. If everyone has already introduced themselves earlier, but you want to tell us what you're doing? Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Good evening, all. Hello from South Africa in Durban. Forgive me not being on camera. but Saturday afternoon here, I'd rather not be in the visual. I'm an ADR practitioner who pretty much is more into the mediation space than anything else. Love what I do, passionate about the commercial mediation space, but in particular, the land for the marginalized in respect of conflict within that space. I've most recently got involved with the rental space, where I'm in a movement called Movement for the Poor in the rental space in Durban, South Africa. So I'm very excited about the prospects to add some value there, where poor dwellers are sometimes evicted because they can't meet their rentals. And so I'm involved in that movement from a, let's say, just a purely give back. So it's pro bono, to ensure that we can maintain, particularly for the elders, to ensure that they're not displaced or dispossessed. So many thanks, Vikram. Good to be on board. That's me in a nutshell.
But the interesting thing, Indrani, has come out from that is that the role of mediators in social problem solving, is it always to be considered pro bono? Or is it a profession? Can it be a profession? I think that's an important area we have to touch on, because in general, mediation, everyone looks at as a free service. The value of it is not really looked at. But now when it comes to social problem solving, we want it to be a profession. So in that part of it, is there anything that you would want to look at from that perspective? Because you said if you're doing it pro bono, it's a nice thing and you have some other things happening. But some people should look at it as their profession. Is it possible? Will it happen?
Thank you for that question, Vikram, because I think it's very important for us practitioners to realize that there's absolutely optimum value for us to be within the space, earning fees and generating the lifestyle that we're accustomed to. Personally, I'm in the space of mediation for more than 2 decades, and I live, better than, I'm above the average space of middle class, so to speak. So as much as I do the pro bono, and as much as there is the perception out there that there's no fees or no income in the space of mediation, I want to be clear in saying that once you in the space and you sort of align yourself with panels and get involved, where you get invited to preside as the mediator, very, very, I think it's relative to all of us throughout the world, that fees will be generated. So it's not just about giving the pro bono stuff. So one can certainly earn an income and live professionally by both adding value and giving back to communities.
No, because what I'm looking at, Indrani, is that on one end, obviously, people in mediation, yes, they can run from mediation. But I'm saying that the social problem solving has to become a full-time activity for some people. And lots of people, I mean, not some people, lots of people. There's so much to happen. But are we working towards that? Are we moving towards that in any country? I don't know. Lisa might have some kind of on that, Lisa. Are they earning money as social?
Sorry, Vikram.
Yeah, Indrani.
Vikram, before you hand over to our esteemed Lisa, I want to put it into perspective in saying that although I'm involved with the poor flat dwellers movement in South Africa in the space, we've recently been invited as a delegation to sit with government, and where government is now interested to, let me say, fund certain of our activities. So I hope that helps and puts things into the kind of perspective.
Yeah, the main thing is, are those mediators going to be paid? And are they going to be paid well based on their experience? Or are they supposed to come in because they're already doing well in life in other cases? So they should come in and give their contribution as just whatever, as on a pro bono basis.
Well, I can only speak for what's happening in my particular landscape in the present moment. And I must say that although it's usually pro bono, that the government is now for the first time inviting a delegation to head office in Johannesburg, Pretoria, which is approximately 600 kilometers from where I live, and they're willing to fly the delegation over and engage with us on a level that budgets will be allowed for the mediation processes going forward. Now, I'm not saying that one can particularly rely solely on the poor dwellers rental movement for lifestyle maintenance. However, it's important to, let me just say that there is now a very earnest, a sort of mindset around mediation is important. We see the value, so we want to sit around the table with the practitioners to see how we can engage more robustly with them on a fee generating prospect.
Why? But I keep coming back to this only because I want this mediation army all over the world. But the mediation army, if the stomachs are not full, where are they going to be able to do the larger things we expect them to do? I think we just want mediators to be up and above everyone else, and they should just be doing all the good things in the world and still keep their stomachs empty. I think it won't happen. I think that's why I'm looking at it. Will it come from the social problem solving? Are they going to be valued for that? Or are they going to have to do other things and then put their time there? Because for me, I'm telling you, I would, for one part of my life is playing golf. I don't want to leave that only because I want to do the larger things. I want to get both things. That if I'm doing social problem solving, I should be able to take this as part of my profession, not as my free time kind of activity. So I think that part of it, I think we need to also look at, but we'll come to that. But the only thing is Kato hasn't given his Japanese experience and how.
Thanks, Vikram.
Yeah. But Indrani, I think in terms of your better than middle class situation, I think people need to see your back garden to know that that's not a public garden, that's your own garden. So they should know.
You want me to show this now?
Obviously, they should know where you're coming from.
Your
And you have to do and you have to do the pro bono activity. That's why everyone expects you to do the pro bono activity.
Let me go out of my bedroom outside. And at some stage, after you speak, I'll show my garden.
Dimitra after Kato. Dimitra, you come in after Kato.
I just would like to add something about community mediation and what Abby said. Another reason of neighbor dispute was where to put their bins, their garbages, and in front, at the back, at whatever. And another thing that it was very, very important from my experience in community mediation, unfortunately only in the UK, because I will talk about Greece, was the family disputes they had. Why I'm saying that? We had lots of cases where teenagers couldn't get along with their families here in the UK. And the result was for them to leave the house and be on the streets and be homeless. So it was really, really important for us to help the families to fix, let's say, their relationships and stay together. So I think it's huge when it comes to community mediation. Unfortunately, in Greece, and Gilbert said about democracy, and Greece gave birth to democracy, but unfortunately, they are very reluctant in Greece to accept mediation. And I don't know, and I would like your help with that. How can we communicate to people this gift? I mean, judges and lawyers just don't help. They don't.
That's look. That problem is another problem which we'll have to discuss separately.
I'm saying that how can we help as mediators the society when there are barriers, when they don't allow us to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. Yeah.
So the role that they can play, and are they allowed to play that role or not? That is the other part.
Yeah.
And Indrani is showing us those people. Yeah, Indrani is showing us those people who do the pro bono activity after they created those gardens.
Let's see her garden. Put her in the center. You have to highlight her in the center.
Yeah, because I just want the world to know that these are the mediators who are not letting the social problem solving mediators get somewhere because they do all the pro bono activity. Okay, because it's a little dark.
Thank you, guys.
It's a little dark.
I
think
apologize for.
It's very dark at the moment.
Yeah, Meltem.
Hey,
I
I
just
apologize for disturbing because I cannot put it in chat. Chat is disabled.
Yes,
But
yes. Everyone
I
has.
have to
I
jump
disabled
off.
it. Yeah, I disabled it because you
Yeah.
can just come in, like you said, you just come in and say bye. Then not a problem.
Okay. Thank you so much for this. I hope to see everyone again, but I
And
have
you are
to.
not taking any members back. Then no one is going to take any membership from you because you are not involved in the discussion. You want to just make members. This is like a PR activity.
Put your email address really fast, Melton.
She
Tell
put
them
it
your
now.
email address.
She put it. I'm deleting it. How do I delete her chat?
No.
Okay.
This
Bye.
was very informative, and I would
All
like
right.
to come again. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I want to say
no,
something
Kato,
because
after
I have
Kato,
to leave
after Kato.
soon too.
No, after Kato, after Kato.
Well,
Okay.
I have to
Okay.
leave in 10 minutes, so that's all I
Okay.
have left.
So okay,
Go ahead, Kato.
okay, no, you come in, please. Then now you'll say that I was giving the words of wisdom which you didn't take. Let's take your words
I
of
don't
wisdom.
have any words of wisdom, but all right. So I was thinking about, Abe had brought up the family group decision making, and it led me to think about Breitbart. I don't remember how to say it, but he talks about reintegrative shaming. And it occurred to me that reintegrative shaming, the idea is when you bring something out and the community looks at it, there's a kind of shaming when it's a wrong thing. Just the fact that it's in front of everybody gives that impression, and that changes behaviors. And that has something to do, to me, with what Bob was saying earlier, and also what Ken talks about when he says bringing something out of the shadows, and that also plays to our role in the social fabric and dealing with social issues, that in some ways, as mediators, we have that way of bringing things out of the shadows and reintegrating them so that we can look at them in a societal view. This has to do with democracy as well. And so all of the things that you said, so that little point that Abe brought up sparked a whole lot of thought around that. So I was just putting that on the table for us to think about, what about that in terms of our role of
That is
bringing
why,
those things out.
and that's why, Lisa, you play a very important role in this discussion. So wherever else you have to go, tell them that you're not coming. You have to stick
I
around.
can't. I have to do a training.
It doesn't matter. Your role.
I'm leading the design when I'm facilitating.
There's a larger role that you have to play. You tell them, no issue. We'll talk to you later. We can sort those out. We are solving the world's problems. All that can wait. Okay. Yeah, Kato. Yes, Kato was saying something.
Right, I'm just wondering what to say, right? Because
no, then it's okay. No, you don't have to force yourself. We can come back to you. It's not an issue.
Oh, let me try a bit. Right?
Okay.
The situation in Japan, whether I'm the right person to talk about Japan is a bit questionable, but the way I see it is that it's been a bit of sort of chaos in the society, right? And the one is probably huge disparity of the wealth or social equality, such that there is no sort of equal footing to say that two people will come to the mediator, please solve. No, right? It's like this. Right? And that's one of the reasons I told you to most of them for the last couple of years. I've been in the clinical psychology bit, right? Because there are so many people who are too depressed, clinically depressed, right? And they just need help, right? Therefore, from my perspective, where the people say that we have a dispute, we better find somebody neutral to resolve the dispute, they have a mental health strength, right, from my point of view. And I just feel somehow powerless that there is no system in Japan, as far as I could see it, to try to address that once, right? for example, judiciary, the court system is not really interested in intervening there because they think they're doing the right things. Right? Politicians are sort of very selfish, and people, there's a distrust among many people. Yeah. One important, interesting story which you can take out, right? Take away is that the justice minister, you would expect a justice minister to be in such a high position in the society, right? Because he reports to the prime minister, right? We had a series of justice ministers who are so, that's been recorded. So I say a bit of questionable sort of history there. And one is likely to serve in jail because he gave monies while he was the justice minister, right? Bribing, right? And say, could you give me a favor to my wife who is want to be a member of parliament? So we see that sort of people, even who are supposed to be clean, right? Democracy, what's that? Right? That's what people are saying, but people are so afraid of saying that, right? So I would like to be of assistance to all of the people who are feeling vulnerable, depressed, hopeless. I can't do it. I can only sort of help a small number of people individually.
But Kato, you picked up a very important point of income disparity. And is there a area there where the mediators can play a role where they can in some way help in? Lisa has something to say in that, but let's just take Kato saying something. Yeah, Kato. Do you think when you said there is income disparity in society, now is there a role that mediators can play in some way balancing that out? Are you saying something there?
I'm not quite sure. Was it 2 weeks ago? I said probably on Sunday. There was a survey done to the ladies who are childbearing age, and 20% of them said that I'm short of money and it's tough for me to buy sanitary napkins. Right. That tells you something, right? Even in Japan, there are, and that applies also to the university students, college students, female lady students, right? That is what's happening in the society, right? Who looks perfectly ordinary and perhaps looks better than the average, but they are suffering, right? And particularly, how can I help these people there, right? As a mediator, if they come to me on their own, and we sometimes happen, right, and say, I feel so depressed, right? I feel hopeless. What do you think? Then that's not mediation, right? Exactly. I'm just helping one person there, right? And I probably I have a couple of people that I'm helping, right? And it's a long recovery.
We'll have to look at basically the larger role that can be played in such issues which have come up because of, say, the pandemic or whatever, where we can come in on that. I think we'll have to.
I haven't got the answer. When that Fukushima earthquake and the nuclear things happened, there was a mediation scheme. They call it mediation scheme, but in reality, what it was, that's almost like insurance claim, rubber stamping, right? Yeah, and evaluative ones that, oh, you have a good case, right? And I suggest you settle this, etc. That's not really helping the people there, right? But I think I said enough, right? So
yeah, you said it. Okay, Gilbert was saying something. Lisa, after that, Gilbert was saying something. Gilbert, you were saying something.
Also, a little bit to react on what was said. from Dimitra. Sometimes I think we have to go out of the box when we do mediation. Let's take the example of neighborhood mediation. I'm also, as a mediator, I can organize activities on the neighborhood in a mediative attitude. When I have a lot of troubles in the neighborhood, I can go out and show up in my mediative attitude how we can organize, for example, a celebration together, and then we will have conflicts in doing so, and we can also add to all this a mediation process in a group, such as we are not stuck in this mediation frame. We have a conflict between two persons, but we are doing something as mediators in a community. And I think this is also Lisa's idea that we are not only mediators between two parties, we are also promoting a mindset in other actions. And this has to be put together on all levels, even in politics, even on international levels. Just imagine a G7 summit of diplomacy guided by a mediator.
Which is what we're discussing, Gilbert. We're doing exactly that next Saturday. So I'm not going to let you talk on this right now because otherwise you won't come next Saturday. That part of it we'll look at. But the interesting thing, yeah.
I just want you to pull that out. Just let us go a little bit out of the box.
Absolutely. No, I think the important thing that you're saying is that the fact that there has to be a mediator mindset in whatever is happening around you. It's not just the fact that, okay, so and so is a mediator, he comes in or she comes in or whatever gender comes in. No, it's a matter of the mediator mindset being part of whatever's happening. And those people, yeah.
He or she is an observer and can do a comment of what she or he is observing as a mediator.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Not taking sides.
So I'm going to say something and then I'm leaving. So, so many things came up in my mind. And one, I think, very important thing, and I think that this mediator mindset, last night, I was actually reading an article about somebody who went in to do a workplace mediation. They had 3 mediators and the conditions were so bad that they had to create a whole new process. And with their mindset, they created a new process, not sit down 2 on 2. That's what they went in to do. But they discovered that something else was needed for this situation. And that's the mindset we're talking about. And I find that, and that's why we're talking about this broad scale. I find that the more experience I have as a mediator, and I don't know why, why wouldn't it do the opposite, but I have more faith and more love and more to give than I had before I was a mediator, and that increases exponentially. And on the individual level, sometimes just listening to someone, I've seen people in the worst of circumstances, and just spending a moment with them and listening to them means so much to them that all of a sudden I've given a big gift, and I didn't know or didn't intend to be giving a gift, but it was a gift. And that moment was important. And then, taking it to the larger scale. So it's there. I'm not saying that we're not like gods. We're ordinary people and we have flaws, and we should also acknowledge those and not think too much of ourselves, because we also need to remind ourselves that we're human too and make mistakes. And so I'm constantly. Yeah, go ahead.
And what I was saying was that one is that you're talking about us as mediators, as us having these flaws. I'm saying here, I'm trying to go the role of mediators, not as us, as mediators with the mediator mindset being out, those people being out there. So I'm just trying to say that, look, it's not mediators who have to go out. they have to be people with the mediator mindset being identified by the communities, by maybe
I
states,
know, but
nation.
as soon as I say something I did, I feel guilty.
Okay,
Like, wait a minute.
okay, but
I have to remember I'm not perfect. Okay.
no, you first. Hamdan is going first. He wanted to
I
leave.
have to go. No,
First,
no,
no,
I
first
have to go.
No, he wanted to leave. You listen to if he has 1 minute to talk about the Brunei experience. Let him go. After that, you go. Now, what is the thing?
I love Brunei.
Yes, Hamdan. Anything on the Brunei situation?
Thanks, Vikram. Basically, here mediation is not something that is quite popular, mainly because issues get settled at a very early stage by means of amicable settlement. So the only thing that currently I'm focusing on studying the case studies and research is from externally. So nearest one is Singapore and Malaysia. That's what I'm focusing on, and of course on India. So I don't have much to share at the moment from a Brunei perspective, but certainly I will be part of the team to add.
Hamdan,
wait, one question, because I'm the one who has to leave. So look at Brunei and look at the ways that they solve indigenously, how they've solved that, because to me that is, also a mediation or a model, because they have a natural model, and so those can really inform our own practice. And so
that's an interesting. That's a very interesting point. No, Lisa, that's a very interesting point, because the local way of solving these issues.
Yes,
I was just listening to some
mediation.
It doesn't matter. Relax. It get with here that world has to do things. Okay, you go.
Goodbye,
Okay, but
everyone.
bye.
Bye.
But I think Hamdan, what she's saying is interesting, that the local ways of solving issues, local social problems, I think we should also start looking at that from every country. Because I think I was looking at something in Hawaii. They have a very interesting way of looking at these issues there, and how are they, the local communities, how they solve them, which we'll get to. I will have a look at that later.
So they do have a structure of village heads. Every village
something
have
like
a head, and they proactively listen to village head for resolution. And I think that they are still keeping it in a very conventional way of resolving things.
Yeah. Similarly, I think a lot of other countries would have that. I think we should also be considering that for social problem solving at the community level. If it is happening with some traditional ways, in some traditional means, why not pick up from there? So I think that part, I think, Hamdan, maybe you can look at that with your academic orientation. I think we can start discussing that. We can do it at some point of time.
Sure. Thanks.
Yes,
Thanks everyone. I will
all
have to
right.
leave.
See you. Bye. Yes, Rosalia, you were saying something.
Me? No, I was just picking up on. I've got so many ideas flowing through my mind right now.
You have the floor. You get to take us through all the ideas.
No, but it's basically creating a space for dialogue. That's the way I see it at the local level. Hamdan, what creating if we look at the indigenous, they have talking circles basically. We do use that here. I just wanted to go back also to what Dimitri was saying, like, how do we make community mediation? You're asking, how do we get paid as mediators? It's starting to happen here, but the issue is you have to get accredited, and that's funded usually by there has to be a will on the part of the government to fund that. It's usually through the Justice Department or whatnot, to fund an organization which will accredit will train and accredit the community mediators, and then they will go out and initially they will do pro bono, but that pro bono is going to create the platform for them to basically become well known within the community, and they will, from that it will generate paid mediations. That's what I see happening here at the local level here in Canada, and depending on the country that you're in and how much progress has been made in the mediation field. Kato, you also brought up the whole issue about so many people are depressed. I don't know how to deal with it. It depends on the policy of the government if that's a priority, because I can give you an example. For instance, in the Canadian government, mental health is a priority. Okay, so we do have mediators, we do have psychologists that go out there, they facilitate, they start the discussions, and they've reported back. And now it's moved up at the policy level, where it's become a national policy, where mental health is a priority of our federal government. So there could be more formal involvement. That would be a model that could be followed. But I mean, you would have to look at what's happening, around the globe in different countries that have these kind of policies, and you can model that. And it's about thinking outside the box, looking at these models and adapting them to the reality in your environment, in your part of the world. I mean, I have so many ideas from all your discussion.
Indrani also has some ideas. Indrani?
Thank you, Vikram. And, I completely agree with what Rosalie has just said in respect to the generation of fees. Because, look, at the end of the day, we all have to create a sense of awareness. And that comes from initially doing some pro bono stuff, and then get the stakeholders to understand that there's something real and very, very beneficial and tangible about mediation in respect to resolving disputes. So from that perspective, I think throughout the world, it seems to be a similar kind of challenge, where we get into the local governments, the national governments, municipal, the towns and villages that we live in, to make the small differences that would add to the bigger picture. And then I must just say that, both my esteemed colleagues in Canada and Japan, they obviously have a much more, I would say, safe zones than we do in Africa, where there's very little, let me say, very, very little consideration given to the humanity behind the bottom line in these hard times. I most recently lost a colleague. I wouldn't say a colleague, but she was involved in the banking industry, and I was closely associated with her. So she killed herself because the kind of, let me say, all of us are working from home now with COVID, and the kind of pressure placed on her desk to still deliver the bottom line was so extreme that she just couldn't cope, given all the additional burdens and challenges and obligations that we are faced with as human beings in this space. So I pray, and actually what happened in that instance was Standard Bank, which is a huge bank in South Africa, very, very suddenly awakened to the reality that we're dealing with human beings with the challenges, and now they're more sensitive and more considerate to how are you feeling today, what's going on in your current domestic environment. I'm not saying that her life, I'm just putting that into perspective, Vikram. I hope that it doesn't place a very sad and whatever, but different countries have different ways, and different industries have different. The banking industry in this country, like many other industries, they're still very much interested in the bottom line. What's in it for us? If you're not bringing value to the table, I'm going to pressurize you to the extent that you either go out and become a miracle worker, or you do the kind of things that I've just spoken about.
Yeah. But Abe, what you said?
Look, I just want to make a comment about the Demetria, Cato, and Rosella, and everyone else. Look, our work as mediators is moving people from position to interest. Now, if we want to get the government to be on board, or anybody else, we need to find their interest. Once we identify their interest, we can speak to them in the language they will understand. And this is really our way of engaging the government or certain members of the government. Governments usually, in the majority of cases, they're looking at the bottom line, which is the dollar, how much it will cost them. But if we tell them how much they will save, they might come to the party. So what we use, the economics of managing conflict or the economics of conflict. Approach any university for students who are doing masters in the economy and ask them to do research in the economy of managing conflict. How much would it cost the government if the conflicts, or save the government, if the conflict is managed at an early stage by way of IDR, opposing to it, going through the court system and everything else? They might start to find merit in mediation and engaging mediators rather than saying, we don't believe in it.
No, that's interesting point, because look, Rosalia is in the government in Canada. Let us see what she. I mean, you come to the next point after that. Let's just, you raised a very good point. Let's see what the government says to it. She is the government. Yes, Rosalia, how is the government looking at this?
They look at exactly how Abe mentioned. They look at, well, there's two things. There's the economic, there's the bottom line, basically. How much does it cost? How much would it cost? How much does it cost the government? Okay, if you don't have a policy, for instance, on mental health or on conflict resolution, you know, how much does it cost the government when you have employees, for instance, let's say there's conflict between employees, okay, when the absenteeism and even mental health, it costs the government a lot of money. Also, all the social issues. It comes down to dollars and cents. But there's also the issue of being reelected. You can't put that aside, that the politics, okay, of being reelected, of being popular government that wants to come back and be reelected. So if there's, for instance, if the will of the people at the bottom, the local level, the community level, okay, if the voice of the people at the community level is strong enough, okay, to create an advocacy that, that becomes an issue which the government has to take up, because that becomes a political promise. That's how they work. They work with two things, with what are the issues and what's the bottom line. So I do agree with what Abe is saying. I mean, it's spot on, you know?
Yes, Abe. Oh, John, Herman wanted to leave, but
Yes.
he wanted to say bye. Yeah, Herman.
Unfortunately, I have to leave, but I want to thank you very much for this 2 hours together. I feel really like being part of a movement worldwide. So thank you very much.
And we would want you to come next Saturday again on the larger, the global problem solving. So please.
Yes, I will try.
All right.
Yes, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Vikram, I also have to be leaving, you know, what my obligations are on Saturdays.
obviously. No issue.
But this has been a wonderful discussion, very enriching. I just love hearing from everyone around the globe. It's very enriching.
But with the experience that you've had, look, I'll be the last man standing. So I'm here. It's up till everyone is here. So we are here. You can leave. It's not an issue. See you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye, Herman.
Bye-bye.
I look forward to seeing you again.
But Abe, I cut you off. You were saying something.
No, it's okay. I was going to give an example. Doctors, my friend, a very close friend of mine, Dr. Arthur Chesterfield. Back in the 80s and 90s, he led the campaign against the cigarette advertising in Australia. And he managed to get the government to do something about cigarettes and advertising it. And what he did, exactly what I said earlier about the economics of dealing with the health problem because of smoking exceed the benefit of tax collected by the government from cigarettes. And he succeeded in that. And we were actually world leaders in curbing smoking and advertising, as well as the marketing, the effect of smoking on health. So really it's the economics. Government will, if they believe they're saving money, they will do it.
So basically Yeah. So what you're basically saying is that when the role of mediators in that sense, if they come up in this kind of a social problem solving, they should be
Absolutely.
able to tell the whatever, it could be the government on one end, whoever is on the one end, that look at that also. Don't just look
Yeah,
at it in isolation. There is lots more in that.
lots more. The government is there. It's not really about anything about from economics. Economics plays a major role in government decision making. And if we can talk with them through, that's their interest, through economic sphere and the impact of that on their economy, I think we are in the right track. And this is exactly what we did here.
Okay. But Alexander, again, now Alexander also wants to say bye.
Yes, I sent a message to Vikram, but as he's a gentle, thank you very much. It was a great meeting. It was very good hearing from you. And when I listen to what everyone mentioned, many ideas come to my mind, and I think it will be useful for them. Sorry if I make any mistakes. I'm not a native speaker in English, but it's always a pleasure to exchange with you. Have a nice weekend.
But
Namaste.
yeah. All right. Thank you, Alexander.
Be safe.
All right.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. But Teresa, you have not said anything. Do you want to add your points on this? You heard everyone. Yeah.
So lots of great conversation and lots of great voices. So there's a lot of things I could comment on, but I'll pick one that was an interesting piece for me, this conversation about whether mediators in this area can make a living at this kind of work. And I guess I think about it in two ways. One, I know an awful lot of mediators in Florida who make or lawyers or mental health professionals who are currently making most of their living as mediators, but not really specific to what would be considered what we're talking about today in terms of social problems. I know very, very few of those. That doesn't mean I know what the overall numbers are, but there is a very distinct difference in the numbers that are making a living in that area. And then the other thing I was sort of reflecting on is I have no experience in this area whatsoever, but it's an interest of mine. But in my mind, it's always been an interest as retirement volunteer work. And that really is how I've seen it, as opposed to thinking about, the possibility of being able to incorporate that into the concept of making a living as a mediator. So I don't know that at this stage I can pick up the kind of experience that would make that paid work. And I'm still very interested in doing the volunteer piece. And I do think perhaps there has been someone on this call, maybe still on, I can't keep track because I'm on my phone, that knows a lot more about whether people are truly making a living at this kind of work in the United States versus other places. So I'd be, sort of curious to know if someone knows a bit more about that than I do.
No, I think Lisa's left the call right now, but there is some work coming in. Do they get paid? How much they get paid? We'll have to look at that. Well, look, I'm looking at the skill. The point is that for a community of, say, for every 1,000 people, there needs to be a person who has that mediator mindset. Why I'm not using the word mediator actually is because mediators are considered mediators when they get certifications and accreditations and all that. So I'm leaving that part out because that's not going to solve the problem. We need huge numbers. So if you have 1,000 people, for every 1,000 people you have a mediator or person with a mediator mindset, you can imagine how many you need out there. For 7 billion people, you need 7 million of those people out there. So if you need that many people, they have to be taking it up as a profession. And the society should value it. And how are they going to be paid? Our community is going to collect and give it to them. How is it going to work? We'll have to look at that also, because you need that army out there, and the army is not going to do its work, and it can't be just a one-off thing. Okay, I'll get involved. Okay, I have time for 1 hour on a Saturday on so and so month. Okay, so I'll walk in and I'll take my experience and I'll take it there. Damn good, you should do that. I'm not saying you should not do that. Wherever you get an opportunity, you should do it. But that's not the larger way that we can look at these problems and how a person with that kind of a experience, that kind of a role comes in. So that's how I'm looking at it. I don't know whether you considering it from that perspective, because look, one is the retirement part of it, one is a pro bono kind of it. I'm saying it has to be a profession.
Well, and I think obviously the key sort of phrase in there is it has to be valued.
Yeah.
Whether
Absolutely.
it's paid for or not, or on the path of being paid for, it has to be valued. It has to be a valued role. And the question, of course, that you've posed a couple of times is, how do you get it there? How do you create that notion that mediator or mediation or that facilitator role, certified or licensed or whatever the particular vernacular is in a particular place, is a valued role, and is something that those who have the ability to bring someone like that in, that's something that pops into their head very early in the process of a social problem. Is this an opportunity that we can bring in someone to hold that neutral space and have all the conversations with the various stakeholders that are needed? And how does it become valued enough that it is a common place that those individuals go when looking at options?
Yeah,
I don't know the answer to that, but
no, we're discussing. No, look, Teresa, let me tell you, you're in a very mature market in terms of mediation. I am looking at mediation at zero right now in India, and the only activity that's happening is with the court system. Now, my problem is, even in that part of it, the mediators are not valued because the courts need to clear their backlog. So these mediators, you cannot imagine what they get. Maybe $10, $15 a session. Can you create that? So in terms of creating a profession in that activity is not happening. Now we want to move into a different space, a larger space, of social problem solving. So in that kind of an activity, that value has to start from somewhere, and the value, if their own activity, which is should be their profession of being mediators, even in the court system, if they're not valued there also, is society ever going to value the concept of mediation otherwise? I'm talking from the Indian perspective. I mean, this will be similar in maybe the African experience also. I don't know. Other countries will have to pick up the thing. I don't know whether Indrani will have some view on that. But I think that is where we have to start looking at the valuing mediators and mediation in general, first of all, and in this activity also. Yes, Indrani, what do you think?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what you've just articulated, Vikram, because every country, and particularly the countries that are more mature in the road of ADR and mediation in particular, is quite different to India and Africa, or even for that matter, Asia. We're very much in the baby steps of it. And like you said, here in South Africa, it's predominantly court annexed mediation. That has failed dismally. Beyond that, some government departments with a kind of mindset of their leadership in terms of the directors within those respective departments will say, well, let's have a project like we do in land rights. Let's have a land rights management project where we say we don't want to spend as many millions of rands in terms of litigation losses. So let's try and mediate those disputes before they can go to litigation. So there's a lot of that, and it's starting from the court to next mediation. I'm very optimistic and very hopeful that the paradigm in the decision makers, the stakeholders, like the judge presidents, and by default, the judges that preside below them, through that head of the governing body who says, there's so much value in mediation. Why is this matter sitting before us when it should have been mediated? So I'm giving you guys 1 day to go and mediate it, get it into the mediation space. And if you don't, there'll be frivolous awarding of costs and so on. And that's what gives it a bit of bite, or a lot of bite. So that's what we're seeing down here in South Africa. And I think, it speaks to the general African, I guess,
No, but I'm telling you, Dindrani,
Yes.
this is a conversation, or this is the attitude. I do hear, say, the previous Chief Justice who just left on 24th of April, he had this view that mediation is to be looked at. That's not an issue. Mediation should be looked at. But what are you doing about it? If in the, like I said, in the court system, if they're going to be paid $10, $15 a session, how do you actually let that profession develop? So I think we are going wrong on that end. And then when it comes to social problem solving, if we go in the same direction, it is not going to be a long-term thing. It is going to be once in a while someone comes in and tries to intervene, maybe as we call it, or whatever way it is going to come in, and that's going to be the end of it. So I'm saying that if you have to sustain it, we have to be able to develop it as a profession and an activity which is valued. And when does that start? How does that start? Maybe Teresa, I mean, we'll have to go into the American experience.
But Vikram, before you hand over to Teresa,
sorry,
I just
Teresa,
want
1
to,
second.
yeah, before you hand over to Teresa, I just want to say that, I mean, we're all very like-minded and our mindsets are geared towards mediation as the mainstay and the end of our careers. So I think anyone who enters the space that's not tenacious about developing it and passionate about, you know, making a very, very considerable difference in our respective spaces, you're not going to get much. If you're looking just to make a quick buck and move on, it's not going to work for you. So obviously you're going to have to put up with so many of the adversarial consequences that come from the naysayers, but the diehard, passionate, like-minded people will, I guess, at some stage in our own respective spaces, impact and be able to have some kind of breakthrough that's going to sustain the mediation advocacy, the mediation practices into many generations to come.
No, but Indrani, look at the person like me who's totally focused on doing this around the world. I'm just wanting it to go in the right direction. I'll take it wherever it has to go. I'll push it. I'll do whatever. But the point is, the idea of this discussion is that just get the direction right. And we'll find people who want to take it further. But is it in terms of the experience? Let's say Teresa would tell us maybe how it, from what it started in the court system in the US, which is where it started, where did it move, how did it move? And Teresa, please.
You know, I wish I could tell you all of that. The person that can tell you that for Florida is a woman named Sharon Press, but who was really instrumental. But I will let you guys know, if you're unaware, that Florida is sort of ahead of many other states. When you just think about developmentally, I'll do it in terms of years because that's easier. There are places in the US that are 20 years behind where Florida is in their growth in mediation. So I know that I'm in a unique area. And one of the reasons I know that is I decided to go back and get a master's in conflict resolution just a couple of years back, just to sort of enhance, you know, my knowledge in that area. And part of that was hoping I'd be able to do more community-based work or social problem work in the future. And I learned a lot that I didn't know about how mediation is growing in other areas of the country. I know that in Florida, it is taken 20 to 30 years to get where we are now. And it is like many other things, it's sort of having the right person at the right time with the right people who had the ear, and this has been talked about this morning, had the ear of the right people in the right places to sort of take up this cause. And there are many, many people that spent countless unpaid hours because they believed in the value of mediation. And that's really what started the growth until the judiciary began to support it. And then now we're at the place in reality, when we go back to making $10 an hour or $0 an hour, mediation is such an important part with so many advocates of mediation that here locally, when I wanted to get some more mediation experience in the last few years, there's a waiting list to volunteer your time for free in the mediation program in one of the largest counties where I live in the state of Florida. So it definitely isn't just all about making money or making a living. There are still so many people out there that are willing to give their time because mediation is an important service. And I will tell you that I'm involved in, and I probably, this promise won't be a long tangent because I know it's a topic, not the topic for today, Vikram, but I'm working in as a neutral in collaborative, mostly family law process in Florida, and watching the same process over the last 10 to 15 years in Florida that has begun with countless hours of volunteer time, just like the mediation movement did here, and has taken not months, but years and years and years and years and years to develop until we now have a collaborative statute, just like we have a mediation statute or collection of them. So we have a collaborative statute now in Florida, and that is sort of creates like this sea change of movement. But there are still lots of people, including myself. That's where all of my pro bono hours go right now. And there's, for every hour I get paid, in collaborative, I spend many, many, many more in doing the work. And some of the folks that I talk to now that are younger, and we talk about certain things that still need to happen, they're probably going to happen after I'm long retired. But they're an important part of this growth of collaborative because it's so vital for families. So I wish I could tell you all the ins and outs of how we got where we got. But if someone truly is interested in that, Sharon Press, who's no longer in Florida, I think she might be at Mitchell Hamline Law School.
We'll also
but she's a resource.
No, what we'll do is when we speak to Ken on the 15th, when Ken comes in, we'll take this up with him because obviously he's had that experience. He's seen it move in the last 40 years, the way it has. Why I'm having this discussion is because I'll tell you again, from an example in India, you had the pagers in the US, you had pagers for many years. The mobile phones came in much later. India bypassed the pager stage because by the time it could develop, mobile phones came in. So we haven't seen pagers. Same thing with the mediation. Let us pick up from a point that you people have gone through in the last so many years. Let's pick up from there. Not for us, like I said, even for Africa, other parts of Asia, maybe. We have to take it from that experience and take it from there. Maybe the South America also might be the same situation. So these conversations are important from that end. Because why should we reinvent the wheel? If we can, just by conversations, if we can do that, why not? So we can have this again. I mean, right now we're just building up to the session with Ken on the 15th, but I think we should continue these conversations and see how we can, from our side, take it forward. What do you think, Abe?
Look, Australia is a student of USA in mediation. We took the model community mediation from USA back in '92. Since then, all mediators are earning a living from mediation. Every mediator I know of are living from their mediation work. So we don't have a free mediation per se, but recently a colleague of mine, he started an organization where it offers a free mediation. Mind you, the government already offers free mediation. The mediators are paid by the government, but the mediation to the parties are free.
Well, only thing I'll tell you on that, Abe, my issue with that is that basically your disputes, the government is funding. And the government funding means that if the mediators are paid by the government, it means that it is coming out of some fund, it is coming out out of some taxes. I'm just I'm just showing you, I'm just saying that the disputes that you have are funded by the taxpayers' money, which I find
not all of it.
Yeah,
we have, like I said, we started with that, but we only took about 10-20% of the mediators by the government, but the rest of us are paid privately because we work in private areas.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to
However, for us to be in this position, we started to be a credible body. We created a credible body, respectful, professional, and that's what helped us to gain popularity among every section of the community. We have 200 different ethnic groups in Australia, and we don't have one ethnic group saying, I don't want to be in mediation. I have mediated with many, many ethnic groups, So it is really, it's what I'm saying here is mediation gained popularity because first there is a government backing, but there is also a credible reputation of mediation because of our accreditation system and because of our organization.
But tell me, Abe, how many mediators per, say, per 1,000 population? How many mediators do you need? Is one mediator per 1,000 population enough?
Look, we have, it depends on the demand and depends on Australia is a very small country. We only have about 20 million people.
And how many mediators would you have? Do you have any count on that?
We have a lot of mediators. The organization I belong to, it has in its books at least 2,000 mediators in Sydney.
And what is the population of Sydney?
Sydney, about 5 million. But so, that's only people who belong to this organization, because there are others. There's the Law Society, lawyers who are members of the Law Society. There are other groups. So it's not just one group, and they are there. And if you want mediator, you always can find him.
No, but in terms of why I'm coming to the numbers is only because the numbers that are required in the world, finally, I mean, you're going to take it in stages, but if you have a 7, I was going by the figures of what the WHO says in terms of doctors per 1,000 population. Is there one doctor per 1,000 population? So I'm looking at why not a mediator also per 1,000 population, because that is also a very important thing which affects people. So she was talking about 7 million in the world at some stage. How do we get there?
I agree with you, but I like to make a comment here, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Vikram. Start with 1, and if there's demand for 2, get another 1. You only go by how much demand you have and how many mediators, because you don't want to have 1 million mediator and you only have work for 5.
Yeah. It's going to be a balancing out thing. First of all, it's not just the mediator. For me, these are the people with the mediator mindset. For me, that certification and all that doesn't matter, or training and all doesn't matter, because the scale that we want it on, there is no way that you can do any kind of training to get to do even. Forget 7 million, even 1 million that you would need. I mean, they're not just going to do it only in terms of social problem solving. They're going to do mediation otherwise also, as commercially and other ways. So the numbers, I don't think, can ever happen by the training part of it. We just have to identify the ones with the mediator mindset. And Indrani has something to say. Gilbert, okay. Gilbert saying bye. Yeah, Gilbert.
Yeah,
Dimitra also. You can unmute and say bye, Dimitra. Yeah.
I see you on the 15th. Okay.
Right. No, 8th. Next Saturday also.
Okay, maybe next Saturday. Certainly on the 15th.
Perfect.
Bye-bye.
Perfect. All right. Yes, Dimitra.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure to meet you all. Thank you so much.
And now, Dimitra, you have to write a book on the aspect of social problem solving and mediators there.
I just wanted to say about the situation is maybe we should think better of why we chose to become mediators. And I always talk about Greece here. Most of mediators in Greece are lawyers, and they've seen their training, which was very expensive training, as a way to increase their income. Okay, let's be lawyers and mediators as well. But I don't think the mediator mindset that you said, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You can't be a lawyer and a mediator at the same time. So yeah.
No, that probably will pick up later. But the interesting thing, let me tell all of you, her book is called The Elephant That Blows Rainbows. And what we are trying to do.
It's a children's book. It's not for adults.
Okay.
But
no, important. Why I'm telling you important is because Abe, Indrani, Teresa, Bob, Kato, all of them can contribute. What we're trying to do is create a certain book or certain material which can go out to children all over the world for them to understand what mediation is in a very simple way. So she's picked up the example of animals. She's picked up some animals and said, okay, they have a fight within themselves and how that fight is resolved through mediation. So we're working on that, and we need your contribution on that also. And then we can look at the larger thing, even that social problem solving aspect also can be put out in some material. So we're working on that. We maybe create an animation or whatever for this aspect of putting it out, in terms of at least the children get a concept. The culture of mediation is what we have to develop. So we have to start working to that. So you want to leave the Mitra, because Indrani wanted to say something. All right.
I need to.
Okay.
I'm so
See you.
sorry for
See you.
that.
See ya. All right. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
I have
Bye.
to
Bye,
go as
everyone.
well.
All right,
Bye.
Kato. Bye,
Thank you.
Kato.
Bye. Bye.
Yes.
I'm
Teresa.
leaving as well.
No, but Teresa, you
Thank you
also
very
have
Yeah,
to.
Vikram,
Yeah,
Vikram, I
you-
just wanted to say before Dimitra left
Dimitra's
that,
gone. Dimitra's gone. Dimitra's gone.
yeah, okay. But I just wanted to say to everyone in the group that, thank you so very, very much, because my mindset prior to joining this group was on certification, accreditation, and so on and so forth. And after, really, really thinking deeply about what is this, what is my passion in mediation really about? Now I'm trying to change the mindset on the ground with stakeholders that I deal with. So I'm simply saying to the guys, training will happen. Whether you get a certificate or an accreditation is immaterial. We want to see that the lawyers, the people, the stakeholders are able to become mediators without having a piece of paper. And that's what I've started doing in my space. So thank you so much
No,
for
but
that,
Indrani,
Vikram.
no,
because-
Indrani, let me tell you, you were just saying that you want to be doing this in your space. I had there was this dialogue with some person in Mauritius had organized it, and this was largely the chartered surveyors. These
Yeah.
those were the people who were
I,
there, and
I know Anil very well.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
Anil.
so that webinar with Anil that I did on the developing the culture of mediation, there was a chartered surveyor there who actually got motivated. There was a project that he was working on where there was an issue. He actually mediated, and it was successful. He put the post out on LinkedIn also. Have a look at it. So I'm just saying they're all out there. They're all out there. They just have to be told that this is one way of going about it. That's all we need to do. Just give them the direction. They know everything. They know it's same thing that I'm doing with children also. With children, the same thing.
Absolutely. So
You just
before I
know.
wish
Yeah.
everyone good evening, I want to leave you with the following, and that's simply this: that you are the most amazing ambassador for the change of mindset within the mediation space. And when you feel somewhat disillusioned, when people like myself don't always come on board, please hold yourself to higher order in the knowledge that you are making a difference, my dear Vikram.
Okay.
Thank you
very
so much.
Thank you very much. That's all that matters. This is what I need. But keep giving me all this also. I need to be motivated. I need these
Absolutely.
good things.
So please go to bed now. Good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right.
Before I go,
no, but Teresa,
Vikram,
before
can
you
hear
go,
me?
before
Before I go,
yeah.
let me say this. And I think certification is a whole nother topic. But here in Florida, as big as certification is, you do not have to be certified. The clients, parties, people, whatever you want to call them, may always choose voluntarily someone who is not certified in mediation, even in Florida with our very strong certification program. So I completely hear you and agree and support the mediation mindset that you're talking about.
And which is the situation, Teresa?
Is a whole nother conversation.
Which is Teresa? Which is the situation in most countries? I think almost all countries, where anyone can be a mediator. It's just that people don't know about that, and that this is the way. So, but Teresa, what I was saying was that book that Dimitra has written, you will also have some contribution on how we can word it properly so that the children will understand, and that we'll run it through you also. I'll send it to you.
Fabulous.
And both of you also, Abe, Bob. Just have a look at it, and we're trying to come out with something which is so simple that the children, that's the starting point, that will make one for older age group also. So she's already written that book, and that's the best part. And I don't know whether it's available in the US. I don't know if you go to Amazon, I'm sure it's there, but we are trying to refine it to a point, even make it a little more simpler and maybe more in tune with the different cultures and all. We're trying to do that.
All right. Thank you very much. This was fantastic. I hope to see you next week.
All right. Yep.
All
See you,
right.
Teresa. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, Abe, we need your views on how to go about because you've done so much on community mediation, and how to actually reach the message out in a very simple form, so that people know that this is an option, this can be used, and they actually start using it.
Well, I haven't trained school children in mediation, peer mediation. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the peer mediation.
Yeah, we've been talking about that. We've been having discussions on that.
Yes, I think that for me, the simple message, when I gave a talk to the Philippine Catholic education system there, administrators and teachers, I gave them one message. If you want really to make a change in the children's mind about conflict and bullying and all of that, we need to change the language we speak ourselves to the children. We need to have a softer language, more positive language, less competitive language, and be inclusive. We don't say you've done much better, you are number one, you are all of that. We need to be really change our language in the schoolyard and in the school, because they were talking about getting another subject in the curriculum and that will cost a lot of money and all of that. We don't need that. How many subjects you and I have learned in school we remember now, but they are life skills that we need to learn and take with us beyond the schoolyard.
No, but the way I'm going about it is, because I told you this has to happen on scale. What I am doing is that we're trying to have the conversations with the children.
That's exactly
where they are the ones, they know how to do it. They're already doing it. It just has to come out. It's just as, yeah, no, what I'm trying to look, the larger thing on the aspect of training them on communication skills and all that, it's a much larger area, which definitely we put it out. The whole idea is that we have to, because we have to reach in terms of scale, we have to put it out in video form on the YouTube channel, on social media. So we have to make the communication simple. Be it an animation, we have to put it out. Maybe clips of children talking about their experience, that has to be done. So here, the initial experiment that is happening is that just the conversation with the children, just telling them, okay, this kind of a thing happens, tell us about your experience in this, and the children start talking about it. So they have themselves identified the mediators in their school or with their the class or whatever they are. They already have identified them with the conversation that have happened with children. So they already know, because you take it through the route of telling them that, okay, we'll train you and whatever, as a proper exercise in the school, it won't happen. It has to be a movement. Yeah.
This is only one aspect about the training and mediation. But the other aspect is really about us.
Yeah, definitely. That part of it is essential.
How we address. But then we go back to the children and then ask them about their experience when they have faced a difficult situation with an adult or the other child or someone else, and ask them how else. Because I mean, look, the other aspect of my strategy is, when we are teaching history and about wars and conflicts in the past, they are facts. We cannot change that. But I ask them, if you ask a question in the classroom, after they talk about the war and who won, who lost, and all of that, what else the leaders of both warring parties could have done to avert this war?
Yeah, and the other part is the kind of thing that you came up with, that the after effect of it can have a certain effect on, like it happened to you, that you're actually moving towards a peace kind of a activity.
No, I'm talking about, you see what happened. Those kids going to be one day politicians, and some of them could be defense ministers. If we teach them that war can happen, but what else we can stop that war from happening? Because they already talked about it in classroom when they are young and they grow up with it, that before I press the button for war, I must think about another way of dealing with this problem without having to fight. It doesn't matter which part of the world they are in. If they start to think that way, we are starting really to look at conflict management and conflict resolution, and IDR practitioners.
So that's why, that's why what I am doing is that this developing the culture of mediation is what our focus has to be, because once that is done, it will flow into every area. Because like you rightly said, these are the ones who are going to come out. They'll be the politicians, they'll be the diplomats, they'll be in every space that you have in the government. So these are the look. It's not going to happen. Like I've always been saying, it's not going to happen in an year. It is going to be into the psyche. Slowly you'll get in and it'll become part of culture. So we have to put those steps properly. And communication, we have to take it on scale. We have to have people like you talking about it maybe, but I actually want the children to be talking about it.
Well, that's how we teach the children to talk about it. It's actually going home. And then instead of watching the news and talking about the wars happening and conflicts happening around the world, let us talk about the peace that we could create ourselves in the neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the one. That's the kind of thing. Yes, Bob, what do you think?
I agree. I don't want to bring it back to the Irish issue, but we have segregated education here based on religion. And so that in and of itself is a massive issue, and that polarizes the children at the very beginning. So I would agree. Change the language. If you change the language, you change everything.
But you have to suggest those ways. People like you, Abe, at least whatever experience you've had, let's put it down and into. But it has to be, like I said, it has to be thought of on scale. We can't individually. I earlier thought that okay, you have to each school talk about it. It won't happen. The numbers that we need. So it has to be a communication which we have to create, simple, and it goes out, and just the initial developing of the culture. That's the initial thing we're talking about. Okay, there are other ways of resolving things. Everything doesn't have to happen in this way. Just that basic communication to start with, then we'll keep building on it. What happens sometimes is that we want to take such a large message and throw it that it never goes out totally because we're not hitting specific. So let's start small. Take a specific communication, which is what I said. Dimitra at least has gone out and made a book on how to at least put out the message of mediation through usage of animals. So I'll be sending that to you, and you have a look at it and how we can even simplify it for the younger children, and then maybe for the older ones another communication, because I want to make that into an animation. Of course, look, funding has to happen. I'm talking to people in some way that funding can come in, but the animation has to be in every language in the world, and the animation has to be so common that everyone in the world can, any child can relate to it. So we're trying to work on that, and we need a discussion on that whenever I'll fix up something.
I know a company, an Indian producer or production group who do the animation stories for children, and I've been in touch with them and I've met them actually when I was in India.
Very good.
I'm happy to connect you with them, and they're really doing things, and I didn't make some comments about their work.
Perfect.
So you might want to.
We must, and then let's have a meeting with them also. Let's talk to them
because they could be interested in this project.
Yeah, but the whole idea is that social media is available to us. There is, of course, WhatsApp is there. Why don't we use all that and get that message out that TikTok is used for so many videos? Why can't it be used for these good videos, clips by children talking about it, and animation to explain the concept? So let's start working on that. Let's let that communication go out initially, and then we'll work on it. I mean, we'll develop it further. That part of it we'll do. So let's have the initial conversation happening.
Just as long as we, Vikram, just as long as we don't have you dancing on TikTok.
If that sends the communication out, I'll do it. I'll do anything to get the word out. So I'm seeing you people on next Saturday. Next Saturday is the larger one. Abe, it's the global problem solving, and of course climate change is one part of it. So we take it from there.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you.
Have a good night.
Have a lovely
Yes,
night.
you are in the middle of the night. Bob, he's in the middle of the night.
Yes, it is about 3 o'clock in the morning.
3 a.m. That is the passion. That is the passion which we get from him.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
Have a
See you.
good weekend.
Bye. Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.